Story 1. I want a fast and sudden impact, like hitting the ground while skydiving or being in a high-speed car accident. I want to move through life at high speed before I leave it. No time for regrets, contemplation, or long goodbyes. Story 2. Assuming I would die at an old age, I would choose to pass away quietly in my sleep, just to confuse the coroner. Story 3. Stabbed in the back by someone I trusted, so I could give myself a final, "I told you so," and die being right. Don't trust anyone. Story 4. My granduncle lived a life filled with alcohol, cigarettes, and occasional affairs. On his 80th birthday, he celebrated with his whole family, including his grandchildren. After bidding everyone good night, he went upstairs to sleep and passed away peacefully in his sleep. I would prefer that, but since I do not plan to have children, option B is one of those Scandinavian euthanasia pods. Story 5. 300 kilometers on a bike to a tree. Honestly, it was fun. Flying suddenly and calmly. Hearing the engine's loud roar fade as you lie peacefully. Losing consciousness. A wreck. The cold, dewy grass covering you. A sense of warmth flushes through your body as you lie down in the ashes of your past and present. Drifting away. Like a child carried to their room by their parents. Tucked in with a cool blanket on a hot summer night. Cars weave and drive past your last moments, unaware of the fate you just endured. Sirens in the distance pass you slowly, and you fall asleep happy as the tale comes to a close. Story 6. I knew someone who passed away while eating a Klondike bar. It was unexpected, but they lived a long and full life, spending time with loved ones. That might be the best way to go. Story 7. If I can choose without pushback, total acceptance, then provide me with some supplies and a lethal pill or injection that can be easily self-administered. Place me in a rocket and launch me in any direction of space. I will gladly share any information I can provide until it runs out, and then I will end my life seated by the window. If that is not possible, I choose a sudden and painless end. Story 8. Very old, very wealthy, very comfortable. Falling asleep in front of the fireplace with a cozy blanket around my shoulders. After my caretaker kisses my wrinkled forehead as I nod off for the last time. Story 9. I want to die peacefully in my sleep like my father, not screaming for their lives like the other 3 passengers in the car my father was driving. Story 10. On my feet, sword in one hand and shield in the other, I defend those I love. The blood of our enemies and those who would see them harm drips from my weapons. I will fight for my partner until the very end because she is worth it. Story 11. I'm sorry, but I cannot assist with that. Story 12. I don't care much about where I die. Once I'm dead, I won't exist anymore, so it won't matter to me whether I die at home, at school, in the middle of the street, or anywhere else. As for how I die, I just want it to be painless and fast enough that I don't even feel it, like a shot to the head. I would be sitting, and then suddenly, in less than a second, I would vanish from existence before I even have time to realize it or feel any pain. Story 13. A lot of people would prefer to be asleep. I would like to be awake for my impending oblivion, listening to a glorious soundtrack. I wouldn't want it to be drawn out, but as the music nears the end, I will shut my eyes and pass away. Story 14. Probably on my super yacht getting raided by pirates after they saw a news report that the sexiest man alive would be drifting through the Caribbean. Story 15. Bravely saving my family from danger by sacrificing my life. When I'm older, I still want to live my life. Do you know what I mean? Story 16. Anything that, from my perspective, would be instantaneous. No pain and no anticipation. Just sudden and gone. Also, something that wouldn't involve harm to anyone else. Story 17. Multiple countries are allowing people to die with dignity through assisted dying. Individuals with advanced cancer, chronic pain, and terminal illnesses are impacted. We must confront the reality that either our minds or our bodies will fail first. Provide me with all the illegal drugs, then sedate me to death. Story 18. I am running for a political office when a bizarre incident occurs involving many of the world's most disliked politicians being taken down alongside me. It is completely unexplainable and cannot be distorted into a narrative that radicalizes people. Like the giant meteor that people voted for in 2020, it finally arrives late, but it turns out to be not so giant. It is just large enough to ruin the entire event where all the toxic politicians have gathered for some reason. Story 19. Probably drowning or self-immolation. However, if it is the second option, I want my body to disappear afterward. Story 20. Very fast and pain-free without knowing it will happen. I am terrified of dying or at least experiencing death. Story 21. In my sleep or from a stroke. I would even accept a sudden heart attack. At least you don't suffer for too long. Story 22. I would like to pass away peacefully in my sleep like my grandfather. Not in terror like the passengers in his car. Story 23. Locked in a cage with a bear while wearing a straitjacket, the bear swallowed the key, and we were thrown out of an airplane. I somehow managed to escape, only to be set on fire until I was almost dead. Then, I was kicked into the water to be put out, only to be eaten by sharks. What a terrible day to die. Story 24. Something that makes my wife and children very wealthy. I'm no longer alive, so any sacrifice for them costs me nothing. Story 25. At 101, with a glass of Lafroig in one hand and a Cohiba Esplendidos in the other, shot through the back by a jealous husband. Story 26. I wanted to die in my sleep, without pain or suffering, just to die and rest forever in eternal darkness until the king takes me to glory. I think that was a bit philosophical. I'm sorry. Story 27. Either quiet and peaceful or loud and near intentional. If I am on life support, do not resuscitate and disconnect the equipment to reduce the burden. Story 28. I would like to pass away in my sleep, preferably in a hotel room while I am on vacation and enjoying myself. If that is not possible, I hope to die quickly in an airplane accident where death occurs upon impact. Story 29. Disappear on my 100th birthday with a note left behind, leaving no trace. My skeleton, discovered in ancient monuments, feels as if it has been sitting on a throne for many years. Story 30. Some psychedelics, maybe DMT, could provide a good experience mixed with heroin, although I have never tried heroin and don't want to get addicted. I haven't tried DMT to be fair, but that sounds like a good way to go. Story 31. I accept my fate of being torn to shreds literally by a horde of Yandras after they have broken my mind. Story 32. Doing something spectacular. Going out like a warrior. Nunny. Making my children and grandchildren proud. But with a funny line at the end so they can laugh too. Story 33. When I go, I want to go like my grandfather, peacefully in my sleep, not like everyone else in a car. Story 34. I wish death would appear as a beautiful woman in black, take me by the hand, and then I wouldn't realize I was dead. Story 35. On April 12, 2036, I die in a tsunami. There is no point in trying to run. Whatever happens, I always end up back in the tsunami. Story 36. It depends on my age. If I am elderly in my sleep. If it is in the next 20 years, it should be something that gives my family time to prepare without being too hard on them. Story 37. Headshot with a large caliber, not knowing when. It would be just lights out, no pain, nothing. Story 38. Cancer kept me at the same youthful age and only took my life after 500 years. Let's extend that to 1,000 years. The cancer isn't painful. Story 39. I guess there is too much nudity to view the whole video, but this. Story 40. Immediate, with no reaction, like your heart stopping as time passes. It would offer no recollection of the pain or the loss. Story 41. In a king-sized bed, alone so I don't traumatize my partner. In a hotel because I don't want to devalue my home, and drunk after a night spent with friends and family. Story 42. Looking at the stars. I don't care where or how, but I want to see the stars when I die. Ideally, it shouldn't be too painful. Story 43. I think being swallowed by a black hole would be fascinating. It would be swift, and perhaps there is something intriguing on the other side of the drain. Story 44. Lying on my bed at 80 with the girl I love beside me, we both slowly drift off from this world to the next. Story 45. The oldest man in history was killed in a hail of police gunfire at the age of 103. He was under the influence of methamphetamine, riding a giraffe that was also under the influence, and wearing only a Viking helmet. He wielded a hornet's nest in each hand like boxing gloves. Story 46. I am considering taking painkillers, possibly opioids like my girlfriend did, or maybe just drinking excessively. Story 47. In battle or in war, I don't think it's acceptable to reach 70 and be broke. If there is no time of prosperity and only misery, what is the point? Story 48. I'm in bed with a teenage boy band member, grabbing his attention, when my husband runs in. I jump out of the window from 10 floors up. Story 49. Alien abduction is a phenomenon where a person can completely disappear without a trace. In the case of death on Earth, one might say you get what you pay for. It may be the right place at the wrong time or vice versa. Poor living habits and inadequate genetics can take a toll on the human body. Ultimately, you get what you pay for, and death is often perceived as being unfair. Story 50. The same way Slim Pickens went out at the end of Dr. Strangelove, riding the bomb all the way down. Yeehaw! Story 51. Ideally, a fast and painless option that doesn't require me to suffocate or experience fear or sadness in those last few seconds would be great. Something like dying in my sleep, just dreaming of someone I love fetching me to go for a walk with them. But it would actually be me passing on. Story 52. There is nothing more peaceful than dying in your sleep. Dying this way feels like having a relaxing rest forever. Story 53. Confident in my ability to play tennis, I take the court. I smile at my opponent. Serena does not return the gesture. She would be prettier if she did, I think. She serves. The ball passes cleanly through my head, killing me instantly. Story 54. On the beach at my cabin, I sit peacefully as the sun sets on a beautiful summer day. Just before I close my eyes to drift off, a meteor falls from the sky and strikes my head, causing an extinction-level event that plunges the Earth into an ice age and dooms humanity as we know it. Story 55. Healthy, peaceful, and quick at the age of 85, knowing that my daughter is healthy, happy, and thriving. Story 56. The classic answer I have heard is, shot by a jealous husband at the age of 100. The idea, of course, is that at 100, you are still in good enough shape for someone to be jealous. The more suitable for work version my dad used to say was, falling out of an apple tree at the age of 100, which conveys a similar idea that you are in good enough shape to climb around in an apple tree. Story 57. In the Bible, the prophet Enoch was led to the afterlife by God. I believe that would be the best way. Story 58. A legendary experience. Imagine being the first person they attempt to teleport and having it go catastrophically wrong, resulting in a red mist emerging from the void. Alternatively, picture being thrown around by an angry water buffalo. Story 59. While sleeping, in a place where no one knows me, I just need someone to come and put me in my grave. If I could do it alone, it would be better. Story 60. The best way to proceed is probably under anesthesia on the operating table, completely unaware. Story 61. I would like to die in the Yamcha death pose for fun. I hope I will remember this when I am dying. Story 62. Metaphorically criticized by a group for inventing artificial wombs. In reality, dying peacefully is the ideal outcome. Decades later, women are grateful for their invention. Realistically, it succeeds and remains unnoticed, which is preferable. Story 63. A glorious and beautiful death on a medieval European battlefield in the year 1410, where my friends will drink to my memory and share stories of how I defeated 5 farmers before I fell from my noble steed, only to take down 2 Teutonic knights with my broken sword and dented shield. Story 64. On a calm, cool, snowy night in a big city, lying on a bench illuminated by the streetlight, I am catching my last breath. Story 65. Grab the collar of my ex's current boyfriend, then go to the terrace and jump from there with him. Sounds exciting. Story 66. Pecked to death by the dodo bird. Since it went extinct millennia ago, that would never happen, and I would be functionally immortal. Story 67. Right after sex, I just pass out and never wake up. My wife said she would cut off my manhood and keep it. Story 68. I want to pass peacefully like my grandma did, in her sleep, and not like her passengers, all screaming and crying. Story 69. Jump off the largest run on a ski mountain right before dynamite goes off for grooming the run, sending you flying into the air. Story 70. The day I become too weak due to old age or illness to even do a basic push-up, with no hope of regaining my strength, I want a 6'2" Amazon woman to take me out with her strong legs scissoring my torso until I pass away. Story 71. A hero's death. I have a fantasy where I want to be the person who presses the button to save the world or does something similar. That's how I want to go out. Story 72. Headbutting a nuclear cruise missile while screaming at it to go away. A headbutt leads to an explosion, resulting in sweet release. Story 73. Aboard a stellar rocket as a finely aged individual, while enjoying soda and popcorn, I watch through the window as a random wandering asteroid approaches, with the picture of my late partner next to me. Story 74. Wait forever to die or have a fast crash landing. A giant cinematic explosion immediately follows a heroic deed that saves the day. Story 75. I am going out with everyone and every living thing on this planet at the same time in an apocalyptic, planet-killing disaster, like a mega asteroid hitting the planet or the sun exploding. Story 76. Fall off a high cliff into a beautiful river with sparkling blue-green water, only to be rolled by a giant crocodile and then consumed. Seriously, I am okay with two scenarios. 1. In my sleep, while protecting my family. Story 77. Years ago, a friend's boss went fishing with his adult sons and some friends. Midday, he decided to take a nap, so he sat, put his feet up, and fell asleep forever. 20 years have gone by since, and I still envy that death. Surrounded by those he loved, in the middle of the day spent doing something that brought him the greatest joy. That's what I wish for. Story 78. I want to feel it coming intuitively and lie down in bed, ready not to wake up. My heart and breath would slow down as I sleep until both stop without my awareness, without pain or issues. My slumber is deeper and more permanent this time. Story 79. One where I don't feel anything, where it's instant. I don't want to know that I'm dying. I don't want to know it and I don't want to feel it. I guess I'm just too scared. Story 80. I want to be aware when I die so I can calm myself, preferably without too much pain. However, I wouldn't really mind a heroic death, to be honest. Story 81. At the age of 100, after having a three-way with a group of supermodels, isn't that what everyone says? Story 82. Drowning is terrible, but I want to see how hard I would fight to get back to the surface or if I would be at peace with it regardless. I also want to face it bravely. Story 83. Hit in the head by a meteorite or observing an impactor from a safe distance to grasp the larger context, yet close enough to be caught in the initial explosion. Story 84. I want to die like a king, like my grandfather. He died in a hammock on the beach in Hawaii during a sunset. That's how I want to go, strangled to death. Story 85. A massive stroke occurred while I was sleeping in my own bed at an age when I have become a burden to everyone I love. Story 86. A death on a Sunday marked my final day and the final Mass. It was the last day I received the body and blood of Christ. The day he rose, the day I fell, seems fitting. Story 87. After eating the most delectable cheeseburger of my life, I felt as if I were dying in a food coma. Story 88. Charging into war on horseback, an arrow suddenly strikes my chest. I fall but get back up, using my last bit of strength to defeat an enemy before another arrow hits me, leading to my demise. Story 89. I want to go into my sleep at a hospital after a short illness. I do not want to die in my house as that might affect my wife's future there, and I need to say goodbye to my kids. Story 90. Either peacefully in my bed surrounded by loved ones or sacrificing myself to save someone and knowing they made it. Either way, I just want my death to have some kind of meaning. Story 91. falling off a cliff. I'm a fan of heights, and the fall would be fine by me before impact and losing consciousness. Story 92. Making someone's day and then falling on the sidewalk, ruining someone else's day. I don't interact with people around me, and I feel alone since my dad died. I'm on cloud nine if I can connect with someone. It's the perfect time to leave with a positive outlook. I just think the sidewalk is ideal because there is sunlight, fresh air, and someone can find me and even cry for me, I hope. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.